obviously we're going to be buying things low, selling them high, which is common. So I guess kind of like the whole thing with the whole PS5 thing that was going on back in the days where there were supposedly a limited amount of things and people were buying up a lot just to sell for profit. So it's kind of the same thing from what I understand.
Since so many of our electronic gadgets come from China, these goods are expected to be impacted by Trump's sweeping tariff proposal, but they're just the tip of the iceberg. Unlike previous administrations that use tariffs selectively on certain industries or countries, the Trump administration wants to implement widespread tariffs on friend and foe alike.
In early February, the U.S. announced an increase of Chinese tariffs by 10%, slapped a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico, and a 25% tax on all steel and aluminum. Seeing as how these are our top 3 trading partners, that includes a lot of things Americans buy, from vehicles to appliances, clothes, furniture, food, you name it.
At the time of this recording, only the tariffs on China have actually...
You know what's crazy? Obviously, we're already living this due to the price increase on a lot of stuff. And, you know, bro, going to the market to buy 4 items, bro, I spent like $50, dog. $50 fucking dollars. And I was just like, what the like, I'm not even getting anything crazy, bro. I'm getting eggs, milk, creamer, and coffee. That's all I'm getting. And this is using apps and shit, you know, to save a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Cause fuck, bro, it's insane. And this is crazy because it's like, how are we gonna, anyways, let's continue.
Actually taken effect, but if they are all...
Trump has been thinking about tariffs against China since 1987. He was on, oh wow, really? That's crazy. That's actually crazy. Wow.
All enacted, it would represent a return to an era of economic protectionism that, quite frankly, few people alive today would even remember.
And the impact to you could go way beyond a $1,000 PlayStation.
Let's correct the big misconception about tariffs right off the bat. That they are...
I like how this is on PBS too. That's funny. He gave us a shout out? Yeah, he did. Shout outs to Carl Angelo, for real, for real.
Taxes paid by foreign exporters who want to sell their goods in America. This is wrong. Tariffs are levied on the importers of foreign goods, meaning they are taxes paid by American companies and American consumers. By artificially making foreign goods more expensive, the hope is to pressure Americans into spending their money on products made at home.
Proponents of tariffs often cite the period between the Civil War and World War I as evidence of their beneficial effect.
I wonder how that stuff is going to work for pretty much a lot of these things that we have that are very popular. You know, like Sony, Nike, our iPhones. Like what? That's crazy. Interesting.
Effects. At the time, tariffs accounted for around 40 to 90% of government revenue, and American industry was growing at a rapid pace. But this was also a time of great instability, marked by multiple depressions and vast economic inequality. They don't call it the Gilded Age for nothing.
During the Great Depression, in a desperate attempt to rescue the U.S. economy, Congress passed a massive new tariff act called the... Anyone? The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. Did it work? Anyone? The tariff increase backfired disastrously, further choking economic growth. Some even credit it with contributing to the economic strife that empowered fascist European leaders of the 1930s. It was pretty much the last time America tried to use large tariffs to improve the economy.
That is, until today. Although Donald Trump seems to have single-handedly rescued tariffs from the dustbin of history, it was globalization that set the stage. The free trade policies enacted after World War II made a lot of economic sense for America at the time. Our factories were humming. raw materials flowing, and lots of other countries wanted to buy our products. But over the last 50 years, corporations realized the profitability of hiring cheap foreign workers. Without any labor standards built into trade agreements, there were no downsides to moving factories abroad. U.S. manufacturing jobs plummeted, though some economists.
I wonder if he's gonna do anything about all of the food, the unhealthy food that we eat and stuff like that, and all the chemicals and all the stuff that they put in our foods. Like, that's what I don't understand. Why worry about something like this when we're literally ingesting things that kill us? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a trip.
Argue this was more to do with technology than free trade.
Today, our trade deficit, the amount our imports exceed our exports, is the largest in the world, especially with China. In other words, we buy a lot more from China than China buys from us. To some, this is evidence that China is exploiting or beating us economically. Indeed, China has a history of engaging in unfair trade practices like manipulating their currency, stealing intellectual property, suppressing wages, and keeping prices artificially low to dominate the market.
That's so true, because that's how they start making their own stuff, you know? And we call it bootleg, but to them it's like, why buy their shit when we could just make it, make a profit, and it's cheaper? Crazy.
We've used targeted tariffs to punish them in the past. During Obama's final year in office, the federal government took in $12 billion from tariffs on China alone. But what Trump is proposing goes way beyond that, taking us back to the protectionism of the late 19th century.
And many Americans, especially those in regions hit hardest by globalization, are willing to go along. To them, tariffs are increasingly seen as a symbol of prioritizing U.S. workers over international trade.
Unfortunately, they may be more effective as a political symbol than an actual economic tool. Most economists warn that the pain of a blanket tariff policy would outweigh the gain.
For starters, U.S. importers aren't just going to absorb these new taxes. Most will likely be passed along to the consumer in the form of higher prices. Retailers like Walmart, which get the majority of their inventory from China, would likely have to implement sweeping price hikes. And because many American manufacturers import materials and machine parts from abroad, some locally made items will get more expensive too. Even US companies that don't import anything will be incentivized to follow suit, because when prices rise generally, as we saw under COVID, they know they can get away with it. Economic studies of Trump's—
Oh man, you know what this kind of gives me? It's a little bit crazy because, see, we go to the fashion district in LA, and we go to a store where we get a bunch of clothes that, you know, we obviously sell on our store. You know what I'm saying? So, and they're actually from Asia. I don't know exactly what part of Asia, but you know, they are from there, because I can obviously see the workers and stuff like that. But it's kind of crazy. So, because obviously we're getting it for, you know, the price that we get it for, we sell it for, we sell it for. So it kind of gives me, oh man, see, the thing is, to be able to do stuff like that, it'll be kind of hard. The price would have to be right. So I feel a lot of things that sell these items that are smaller businesses, it's gonna be hard for us. I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely gonna be hard. So we gotta definitely keep in touch and tuned into what's going on with all this, because this is not looking too
various
good.
tariff plans estimate that they could cost the average American household from around $2,000 to $7,500 a year.
There is
That's a
also
lot.
the danger of retaliatory tariffs. China has already announced that they will respond with their own tariffs on American-made goods. With fewer customers abroad, some U.S. companies may have to scale back production and eliminate jobs.
We've already seen these negative effects in action. During
That's
Trump's
not
first
good.
term, he slapped a 25% tariff on imported steel in an effort to bolster U.S. steel production. And it worked. The higher price of foreign steel did increase demand for American steel. The industry grew by $1.5 billion a year by 2021, representing an increase of 0.3% in U.S. manufacturing employment.
However, American-made products that rely extensively on raw steel or steel products like autos, motorcycles, appliances, and farm equipment became much more expensive to manufacture. These companies scaled back production in response, lowering U.S. manufacturing employment by 1.1%. Retaliatory tariffs on American goods pushed the employment rate down even further for a net loss in U.S. manufacturing jobs of 1.4%, according to a 2019 Federal Reserve Board study. Oxford Economics estimates that in 2021, this test round of tariffs reduced real household income in the U.S. by $675.
That's a lot.
Now, it's possible that
That's a freaking electricity bill, man.
given enough time, the economy would stabilize and wage gains would eventually outpace price increases. But it could take years, decades even, to build the infrastructure and supply chains needed to fill the gap left by foreign imports. And who's going to work in all those new factories? The US population is shrinking. Unemployment is already at historic lows, and unless Trump does a 180 on immigration, there won't be enough workers to make all the products Americans are accustomed to buying.
Perhaps the revenue generated by tariffs could be used to create a safety net for Americans during this painful period. Kind of like how Trump used taxpayer-funded subsidies to support American farmers who were hurt by China's retaliatory tariffs during his first term. But Republicans have already indicated they plan to use much of the tariff revenue to finance another round of income tax cuts. Since income taxes are only paid by wealthier Americans and tariffs fall disproportionately on the poor, this would shift the tax burden onto Americans who can least afford it.
The downsides of these tariff plans, as written, are so great that many people assume it's all a bluff to pry concessions from foreign governments. Indeed, despite years of claiming that his tariffs are about helping American workers, Trump now says the purpose is to stem the flow of drugs and immigrants over our borders. And perhaps it will work. In early February, Canada and Mexico were both granted 1-month postponements of the tariffs in exchange for some border-related concessions, though some have pointed out that those concessions were fairly minimal.
If this is really the true goal of Trump's tariff policy, that makes it less of an economic tool to strengthen U.S. businesses and more of a diplomatic tool to influence foreign governments and international business trends. But this strategy carries its own danger: corruption.
One of the criticisms of the tariff policy of the late 19th century was that exemptions were often based on political influence, and that doesn't seem to have changed. A 2024 study found that firms that donated heavily to the Republican Party during Trump's first term were more likely to be awarded exemptions than those that donated to Democrats.
And getting a tariff exemption from the government can be a massive business advantage. If an electric car company, for instance, is allowed to import Chinese batteries at a lower price than their competitors, they can sell their cars cheaper and dominate the market. Effectively, it empowers the government to pick winners and losers.
It's still too early to tell what final form Trump's tariff policy will take, and economists can't really be sure what the effects will be.
So this pretty much gives me the idea to invest in a lot of things that can potentially go up in price, especially with electronics. So this is me just thinking as, I'm not even thinking as eFamily right now. I'm thinking as pre-shop box. You know, gotta think different here. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of gives me that idea. Let me see. Let me see this video that Saying Turtle's talking about. What year? 1987. 87. Oprah. Let me see.
Despite the uneven consequences, press talking about for years, as far back as the late 1980s, when he first tested the possibility of becoming president.
Our guest, the famed developer Donald Trump of New York.
Back then, Trump's target was Japan and its trade practices.
The fact is that you don't have free trade. We think of it as free trade, but you right now don't have free trade. And I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. This is a great country.
He believed from the beginning that there's really nothing worse than being laughed at.
They laugh at us. Behind our backs, they laugh at us because of our own stupidity.
And he came to see the Japanese as laughing at the United States, at taking advantage of the United States by stealing the jobs, by dumping product here.
We let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible.
After Japan's economy cratered, Trump...
He's doing a lot of fuck shit, but... how many rappers didn't look up to him back in the days, man? Let's be honest here, bro.
Shifted his ire to a rising economic
power. He's on
power,
some bullshit
China.
right now.
They are ripping us like we've never been ripped before. If you look at Japan, if you look at China, where we lose $100 billion a year with China.
He's been saying the same thing for 30 years. Donald Trump has a very binary view of life and certainly of the world, and so to confront China, which he perceives as America's most important and dangerous rival, and to be able to use blunt instruments against them and to come out and at least be able to say that you're a winner and they're a loser, it's hard to imagine anything more appealing to the core of his personality.
Please welcome the next president of the United States, Mr. Donald J. Trump.
Damn, so he's actually doing what he's been out to do since the 1980s. Oh, man. So this is going to be something that I personally have to look into, because I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I know a lot about tariffs and I understand, all this stuff. I really don't. I am barely hearing about it and I'm barely looking into it. And I'm looking at it as I gotta definitely understand this kind of stuff, because this could potentially, either help us with pre-shop box or help us with, or not help us. You know what I'm saying? Because if all this goes through, our supplier for pre-shop box would be kind of lost, I guess you would say, because I can't go somewhere and spend an extra 25% off of what I'm already paying for now, when it comes to them, you know what I'm saying? Because then that just doesn't make sense, as to why I would even go back or whatever. So it's something that I gotta definitely look into. And if you guys have any, any type of input or even see anything, send it to my Instagram, eFamilymedia, please. Because like I said, I like looking into this kind of stuff because it benefits our future when it comes to our store, or it could even benefit you guys, you know what I'm saying? So let's get this knowledge going. That's why I decided to play this video, because I just feel that it's important for us to understand what is going on, when it comes to tariffs and stuff like that, and how we can, even though it may seem like it's something bad, there's always a way to make money off of even the bad things, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, we got to do what we got to do, man. So if you guys know about it, let me know, because I would really, really appreciate it, man. I would really, really appreciate it. We were starting to sell vintage clothes. If you guys know, a couple years ago. We haven't really gotten into it recently, but we were blessed enough to be able to find vintage jerseys. I think our best stuff that we've sold, let me see, something that sold for a good price. I think the one of the best things that we've sold was a lot of jerseys, champion jerseys. So there was a moment in time where, not a lot of people were going to thrift stores and stuff like that. So, my wife and I would go to thrift stores and, get inventory there. And our whole point was to look for things with tags and look for vintage clothes. And we found a lot of cool things. We found Bucky's, like this burger stand from Texas. Like we found a hat, a shirt. They sold real quick because it was vintage. Champion jerseys, they've sold quick. Baseball stuff, shoes. Like it's been, any way possible, we've been doing it. But I wanted to actually see this